Another line for black after e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, knight e3, bishop g7, bishop e2, castle, castle is the one with knight c6. It is a bit more aggressive. Black wants to play successfully in the center, either with the immediate e5, or sometimes first bishop g4, and then maybe even knight d7 to generate pressure against the pawn on d4. The drawback of this move though is that we can simply advance the pawn with the tempo, and most probably now black's best choice is just to retreat the knight, as the other two choices, knight b4 for example, are not optimal. Here I will show you know-how by Karpov. He just played a3 in a simul and took this knight, ruined the pawns of the opponent, and played knight d4 to catch this c6 square. After further mistake, the positional mistake here was e5 that black did, and he simply self-closed the bishop. Knight c6, queen e8, queen d3, white was clearly on top. And these pawns are targets. White can eventually attack them like that. The knight can come on b4, and on the other side for black we don't see any creative play on the king's flank where he usually plays. The knight on c6 is completely paralyzing black's position, and he is in deep trouble here. So knight b4 is not ideal. Knight e5 is also not the best, at least from visual point of view, because after knight takes e5, d takes e5, we not only break the pawns of the opponent, now they are going to be double pawns on the e-file, but at the same time they are obstructing the bishop, and they also make it much more difficult for black to play on the king's flank where he usually likes to play with f5. So what we do is just develop the bishop e3. This is obstructing the idea e6, which can be now met with bishop c5 and bishop b5. So it is quite difficult for black to undermine our center. We're gaining some time for development after a move like a6, which controls the b5 square, which we use with the move queen c1, bringing the rook to d1, just like in the previous line. Possible continuation is, say for example, queen d6, rook d1. Again, it's difficult for black to push any of the pawns, c6 or e6. Bishop d7, a3. Our play is on the queen's flank, not on the king's flank. It doesn't make sense for us to trade the dark squared bishop, especially taking into account the fact that it is hitting its own pawn. So what we want to do is, after some preparation, knight g4 is a threat here, so we should better stop it with f3. Knight h7, king h1, say f5. Now we can stop black's attack with in a typical way, just straight on f5. If black takes with the bishop, this is position of resignation, because we just place this knight on e4, and as this bishop is totally killed on g7, we are easily winning this game by just advancing the pawn c4 and c5. And if black takes with the pawn, which is the stronger option, then we play f4 and we stop the pawns. We stop them either by blocking them or by trading one of the pawns, and also we start to attack on h5 ourselves. We can also bring this rook to d1. The queen can now switch to the king's flank, etc. If black wasn't playing this way, after a3, our plan would be just to advance the pawns on the queen's flank, and to make use of the fact that the queen is not very well placed on d6 as well. We are going to advance the pawns with tempos. Okay, so like I said, after d5, knight b8 is probably the best that black can do. After which we just prepare for the play in the center with the move rook e1. This rook is going to operate along the e file. With a choice for black which pawn to advance, the c1 or the e1. If they advance the e pawn, we just trade it, achieving positions after bishop takes e6 that can arise also in various open games, say like maybe even in the Philidor we can have positions like that, but we have some extra tempos, and we have this pawn competing the one on d6, which is definite advantage for us. And after bishop f4, simple development, knight c6, queen d2 for example, we just want to organize our piece in the center and to have a strong grip there. Say bishop g4 can be answered with h3, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, rook e8, just bring the pieces into the center, and after knight d7 start to torture the opponent with bishop g5. Then we can fianchetto this bishop to be sure that the center is secure, the e4 pawn is in safety. Some moment prepare knight d5 or prepare f4 and e5 under good circumstances. For black it is very difficult to find counterplay because this pawn is not moving, as the d6 is becoming immediately a target, and if this pawn is not moving then he doesn't really have any creative plan. On the 11th move, black can also try to get free with d5. Probably this is the best idea that they have, to which we play e5. There is no sense to trade everything, even though we are going to have some slight initiative. I think that it's more to the point that we just advance the pawn and create attack on the king's flank. Say knight e4, and now queen e3. When black takes on c3, we take back with the pawn, and we have this strong grip on the king's flank. One plan is just to advance the pawn with h4 and h5. Another, which is even better, is to place the knight on d4, or we can also bring the rook on d1 and prepare c4. We have a lot of ideas in this situation. And finally, the move knight d7 is simply answered bishop g5 again, like before. Because the trade of the dark squared bishops is in our favor, but we are going to trade not immediately, but first we will play bishop h6, and only when black plays bishop g7 we are going to trade it. Okay, if e5 is not really giving equality for the second player, they can try to play with c6. They play in a similar way in the line with bishop g4, and we are going to react in a similar way. And one interesting reaction here is a4, intending just to push the pawn further on. And if black plays a5, we can jump with the knight on d4. The thing is that now anytime that black trades, we will have the b5 square available for our pieces. If they do not trade, what we like to do is just to improve our position with f4, bishop on f3, and then to prepare e5. At a moment we can also play king h1 preparatory move if this is needed. Something similar can also happen in case of h3, which is also possible. A knight bd7, bishop f1, queen c7, bishop e3, a6, intending b5. We shouldn't let black do this, so we stop him with playing a4 ourselves. And after c5 we have this Benoni-like position, but without the pawn on c4, and this square c4 can be used by our pieces. Also, black's pieces are not very well prepared to play in this case, as black's usual plan is either b5 or e6. We can simply proceed with knight d2, bringing this knight on c4, and also opening the road of the f pawn. If we can achieve position with knight c4, pawn on f4, then e5 is just smashing black, just take him away from the board. In one game against me, my opponent played b6, to which f4 was the answer. Rook b8, now he's tapping the move b5, and also black is intending to prepare b5, so it makes a good sense to stop him with bishop c4. Moreover, this bishop can be very useful once that we prepare e5. Knight e8 was the course of the game, sometimes intending to take in b5. No matter how risky this is, it makes sense to stop black from doing it. Queen e2, just controlling the b5 square. This is very important for us. Queen b7, and one more piece was brought to stop b5. This time the rook is coming on b3, not letting him to play b5 and to free himself. Once that all the preparation is done, Queen a8, all the prophylaxis is done. Now we can prepare our play on the king's flank with knight f3, bishop b7, rook d1, overprotecting d5, and also stopping ideas like e6, because the pawn on d6 is going to be hanging in that case. Rook b to e8 was played, and after e5 black's position just crumbled. Just some more moves. d takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, f takes e5. These pawns are too strong to be for black to stand them, so he decided to take the pawn on e5, but then he lost material after bishop h6. The point is that bishop g7 is just dropping down the knight on c7, and in the game instead he played bishop d4 check, but then the simple sacrifice of the exchange, rook takes d4, c takes d4, queen e5 brought decisive advantage, as after f6 the calm queen takes d4 leaves black completely helpless. And this is how you do it when your opponent plays knight c6. The automatic move is d5, and after that, depending on where exactly they are going with the knight, we usually play in the center, and we, thanks to the fact that we have won a couple of tempos in the opening, we have the upper hand.